Hi folks, Bob Collins for Diver Supply. Now, the new Mission 2 by Atmos has been out for a couple of months. The issue is they've been selling so fast we haven't hardly been able to keep them in stock. The Mission 2 is a fairly big improvement over the Mission 1 that you folks have seen me do a video on. And one of the big improvements and some of the big discussion out there is about the Apple Watch Ultra. And of course, you have seen, and if you haven't seen, I'll put a link up there. I've got a couple of videos about the Ultra, and those videos speak for themselves. So if you'll jump over and take a look at those, you'll see what I'm talking about. The Atmos Mission 2 takes the Mission 1 like a dozen steps forward. Now, first of all, people say, what is the water resistance, or what is it waterproof to? Now, this doesn't have a bunch of asterisks by it that limit what you're going to see as far as being able to use it. It's 300 feet is the water resistance on this dive computer. And the best way I can describe this dive computer is the fact that the Mission 2 is a dive computer with some smartwatch abilities. It will do, it'll receive messages, it'll receive text. Now, you're not going to be able to answer those on there like you would the Apple Watch, but it's not an Apple Watch. It's not meant for that sort of thing. But one of the cool things is, if you look at a lot of the things the Garmin M2 series does, then guess what? The M2 does many of those same things. And I'm going to kind of walk you through some of those and let you see what I'm talking about. Now, a couple of things I want to point out. This is the composite case, which is really nice, helps keep the dive computer light. Any of the bezels or any of the metal parts that you see on the computer, they're 316 stainless steel. What does that mean to you? Well, that's the same thing that the dive watches that I tend to buy is 316. That's one of the best types of stainless steel that you can possibly get. The glass that's in these dive computers is what we call sapphire glass. Again, quality dive watches have sapphire glass. So you can see some of where I'm trying to go with this as far as the quality goes. Now, I'm going to put a link down below so that you can take a look, go in, click on it, take a look at the pricing, look at some of the availability. And I think you'll be really surprised, because this is a mid-level color dive computer. The color screen is wonderful. Is it a Taric? No, it's not a Taric, but it's not $1,000. Does it have AI? No, it's not meant as a AI style computer, but it doesn't cost like those either. So if you are a recreational diver, an advanced diver, will it go into deco? Sure. Can you do some of the adjustments and such to the Bullman algorithm that's in it? Sure you can. But it's not really designed as a tech computer. It's meant as a excellent, easy to see, easy to use. And a lot of times you hear the discussion, they'll call it user interface, whatever that means. To me, is it easy to use? And I've said it before in some of the videos, when people come in or people call me and talk about some of the computers and stuff, one of the first things besides how much is it is how easy is it to use, because there's a lot of dive computers out there that many of you already know of, that you have to push the button and then you have to push it and hold it and then you have to stomp your foot 3 times and turn in 2 circles. Things like that, and there's a lot of initials and things like that in the menu that you're trying to figure out and you're trying to follow. Well, guess what? In the M2, you don't have to suffer with that. It's like it's like a smartphone. I'm going to use that. And it can be used with an iOS smartphone. It can be used with an Android type smartphone. And so it's really, really convenient with the Atmos app that you can move. It'll hold up to 100 dives. You can move some of those dives over to your app, and you can do things like with metadata with some of your pictures, things along those lines. That's really cool about the Atmos app. And by the way, the app's free. Nice touch, right? So when you look at some of the capabilities, I'm going to walk through some of these with you. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is it will monitor your sleep. It will count steps for you during the day. It will estimate calories. So that's a nice touch that we haven't seen in the Atmos line before. I think the M1 did, walking, that sort of thing. Now, when you set your GPS, it will also show you sunrise and sunset, which is pretty cool. You set the GPS, and it'll also show you tides. And of course, as a diver, especially here in Florida, we love to go down to a place called Blue Heron Bridge, just south of Jacksonville. It's down at West Palm. It's best to dive there on high slack tides. So you're able to actually monitor that sort of thing, the tides, right on your Mission 2. Pretty cool stuff. Let's look at the next one. Now on this one, what you've got is but again, this is all based on GPS, based on interaction with your app. Then you're able to monitor weather. And it's kind of nice to be able to do that, to see what the temperature is. A lot of times during the day, I'll pick up my phone just to see what the temperature is outside, or maybe where the temperature is going to be going tonight, which is kind of cool. Now, again, one of the nice things about the M2 is the fact that it's a great, easy to see dive computer that does virtually everything. And at the same time, when you get done with your dive, just leave it on your wrist, because it's a great daily watch wear. Many of the folks, we've got 2 or 3 guys here in the company that wear the M1 and now have upgraded to the M2s as a daily wear watch. And a lot of times when I'm out on the sales floor, you'll see me, I'll be wearing my dive watch on my left arm, and I'll have my dive computer on my right arm. And the reason I do that is because people want to see it. And I sell a lot of the M2s. Now, as a matter of fact, I just had a couple of guys drive 3 hours from their home down in South Florida up here to Jacksonville. I had spoken to Mike over the phone. I'll stick a picture up here. I spoke to Mike over the phone. Him and his son got certified, and they wanted to get a complete gear set up. And so they came up. I was able to fit them out with some great gear, complete BCD, dive bag, regulator, stuff like that. And they bought 2 of the new Mission 2s, because when I started showing them how easy it is to operate these, it makes all the difference in the world. And when you look in that price point out there of dive computers, and these fit pretty much in that middle area, it kind of makes it a no-brainer as far as getting these. Now, again, we've got these in stock. There's going to be, I believe, a Black Friday special. Now, I'm doing this right here just before Black Friday, and I think you may get a kick out of the thumbnail that I put up there. When you get ready to dive, it will ask you, okay, ready to dive, do you want to set your GPS point? And it's a very simple 5-button operation of this unit. Now, 5-button may sound like a lot, but it's not really, because this top button right here, I'll try to get it in my in this other camera. This top button right here is just an up button. This is a down button. This is a select button right here on this side. And then over here, this is a select button. Plus it's also a button to turn brighten up the backlight. So the backlight you can adjust how long it stays on to give you a little extra visibility. And of course this button down here, this is also a back and a select style button. This top button over here on this side, your off and on buttons. And it only takes about a 5-second hold to make that sort of thing work. And this goes pretty snazzy, but I'm not much of a white dive computer, but this would stand out really good on a black dive suit. I charged these up yesterday, and this one actually still says 100%. So let's look at and see what else it'll do. No fly. So there's a no fly countdown. So during your surface interval, based on your dives, it will show you your suggested no fly countdown. So that's a really nice thing to do. So with one of these, you're able to actually see, based on the dives that you've been doing, what your no fly time is. Very handy thing. And of course, it also tracks your surface intervals so that when you've got your surface interval tracking, then you can always plan your next dive, because you have to, if some of you learn dive tables, you have to remember that the longer you stay on your surface interval, or basically every 3 to 4 minutes on the surface interval, it will extend the residual nitrogen off-gassing for your next dive. So let's take a look at what else it does. A lot of times people think about compass, and they've got to use a compass on a retractor, or a compass that's on their console, that sort of thing. The compass that's on the M2, when you go to the dive screen, the compass shows right on the dive screen. And I'm going to put, an example of the actual dive screen of the computer on here so you guys can see that. So it's right up, and as you turn underwater or on the surface, you can easily follow. You don't have to go punch into a different mode to get into and figure out where you are on a compass. It's kind of distracting to have to do that versus having your dive computer on your wrist and you're diving and you just can turn and know which way you're going. It's super handy to have that right on your dive screen. And of course, like most dive computers, you're going to be able to see your ascent rate. It will alarm. Now, one of the cool things about the M2, the M1 had it also, but one of the cool things about the M2, even though it's that middle price dive computer, it does the visual alarm, it does the audible alarm, plus it does the haptic alarm, where it actually, you can feel it shake on your wrist, giving you a notice that it's saying, hey, look at me, pay attention. So you have that haptic ability with the M2 Atmos. It's a great feature. Of course, like you see here on the screen, if you set a dive alarm time, maybe you're a photographer or something like that, and you're going down 50, 60 feet, you know what your NDL is, 52 minutes or whatever dive tables you're using or whatever, then you can actually set an alarm on here for, say, 45 minutes. So it alarms and reminds you what your dive time is. Hey, look, pay attention to your dive time, especially, again, if you're involved in some kind of an underwater activity like photography or something like that. You may be a marine biologist or something doing coral research or something. It's nice to have a dive alarm, and that's built into the M2. Yeah, you've got those pretty simple things like depth alarm, low battery, you're able to, set your alarm for that. And of course, when you start your ascent, You've got your ascent rate on there. If you start going too fast, it's going to alarm. Remember, 30 feet per minute or slower, and or it'll start alarming, vibrating and alarming. And of course, as you go in through about 19 feet, between 19 and I think it's 19 and 13 feet, you're in your safety stop mode, and it goes into, right on the screen, it goes into your safety stop countdown. And once it clears and you check with your other divers, make sure everybody's safety stop is cleared, then hey, you're ready to roll on up to the surface. So a safety stop countdown is wonderful. If you go into deco, it will say deco. You've got a lot of things like that in this dive computer that you don't necessarily get with some other dive computers that are in this price point, that are this easy to use and are so user-friendly as far as the menus and such go. So I'm going to put a picture up here, and it's going to show you basically what's on the dive screen. You're going to have a white block that's going to show your current depth. Up there in the left corner, you're going to be able to see your compass. And over on the left side at about what would be 9 o'clock, and of course you'll also be able to see your ascent rate when you begin your ascent. And down there toward the bottom at about 5 o'clock or so, you're going to see your dive time. You know, again, you've got complete information on your dive screen. And of course, right down there at the bottom, you've got your nitrox setting. If you're using nitrox, it'll show your setting and your mod. Now, you can also set some things like SPG reminder. Again, if you're doing something like photography or that sort of thing, you might like an extra reminder. Mod alarm, if your mod is say 110 feet, you might set a mod alarm at 100 feet just to let you know, pay attention to where you're at. Now, like I said, it does a lot of different activities, kind of like some of the Garmin things. It does bicycling outdoors. It does indoor cycling. It will also do skiing and snowboarding, which is, that's pretty cool. And of course, you can also do pool swimming, and it will do open water swimming. Now, it's really easy to do firmware updates. You just go onto the Atmos website and you can just download that little update tool. If I can do it, you can do it for sure. And I usually find charging for these, when I'm wearing it around the shop, 5 or 6 days on a charge is not unusual. Diving, usually like 3 days, takes about, a little bit less than 2 hours to go from, a very little charge up to a full charge. Adventures are out there. It's up to you to go out and enjoy them. This is a dive computer with smartwatch capabilities and a lot of other sports activities, and they say, the activities there, the adventures is there. What's yours? Likely it's in the M2. Thanks for watching. I'm Bob Collins for Diver Supply, and as I always say, dive safe out there. See you again soon.